The irony is in my book entitled, I end the book by saying that Andrew, who claims to be a great supporter of the monarchy, could be actually one of the instruments that brings it down. And it seems these events are playing in very much to that argument.
I'm imagining that you would say it's made an already horrendous situation substantially worse. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, it confirms my own research that the relationship with Epstein went on a lot longer than both Sarah and Andrew have said, had admitted. But it is very damaging. I mean, it's just another of the lies from the Newsnight interview. I think there's a lot more still to come. I'm aware my own research is only the tip of the iceberg, and there's a lot of material that I have, which I hope now can come out. We know, for example, that Sarah Ferguson was staying at one of Epstein's flats as late as 2013 and 14. So, I mean, what they say in public and what they do in private are clearly two very different things. And it puts a lot of pressure on the king because I think there's a very strong public feeling that something needs to be done. I think there needs to be an investigation into Andrew's time as a special trade envoy, which is when he did a lot of his business with Epstein. I think there are grounds now to remove some of his titles and responsibilities. It's ridiculous. He's still a Knight of the Garter, and he's still, I think, an honorary vice admiral and a councillor of state.
I mean, there's nothing remotely honourable about this individual, is there? And you do have to, in a way, I don't know whether you agree with this, Andrew. I'm perplexed by how many people are sort of only dimly aware of the whole saga, or they've just got so used to the idea that he's such a liability, and indeed worse than a liability, that it's not quite the talking point that it should be.
Well, I mean, time and time again, I've been surprised. I mean, there was a 2022 High Court case in which there was 1.3 million pounds of unexplained money paid to the Yorks, and nothing happened really as a result of that. The press hardly covered the story. You know, we had Sarah selling access to Andrew for £500,000 in 2010. It was a sort of weekend scandal, and that was it. And I mean, talking to people, even school friends of Andrew, they say he was an accident waiting to happen. But I think the attitude of the royal family is to sort of hope that the problem goes away because they don't quite know what to do. And so it's easier to do nothing than address the thing and try and get ahead of the narrative, which is what they need to do. Because I think the danger is that he's now infecting the whole body politic. And, you know, there are calls now for a republic. I don't think that's going to happen. But support for the monarchy is rapidly draining away. And it's undermining the good work that all the other members of the royal family do.
Andrew isn't going to go away, but partly because he's in his mid 60s, and let's face it, long life is in his genes. He could be staggering around the Windsor estate for the next 3 decades, couldn't he? But presumably he cannot stay in that huge house, Royal Lodge.
Well, I think the problem is he can because he's got a pretty ironclad lease. But you're right, the optics look terrible, and somehow he needs to be persuaded to move. Um, I mean, there are options for him. I mean, he could go into exile in the way that Duke of Windsor did. He has been offered a palace in Abu Dhabi. We had the Rwanda scheme. Could we not reinstate that for Andrew? So there are places where he could quietly hide away and be forgotten. But you're right, you know, he could go on for a long time. You know, I think if he was to come forward and perhaps, you know, give an interview where he actually told the truth, that would go to some way to satisfying public opinion. Because at the moment, the worry, I think, particularly for the royal family, is that there's more stuff to come out. We have Virginia Giffrey's book, we have the memoirs of a woman called Juliet Bryant, we have clearly congressmen now prepared to name names. We're going to have more of these leaks coming. A lot of names that were taken out of the hardback. You know, for example, like Peter Mandelson are clearly involved in this. I mean, there are a lot of people feeding in these waters.
Right. In the meantime, you suggest that Prince Andrew will need to be persuaded to move out of Royal Lodge, for example. Why can't he simply be ordered to get out? He must know. I know he's got an absolutely mind-boggling lack of self-awareness, but even someone as daft as him must realise how much damage he's doing to the royal brand. Shouldn't they just tell him to go?
Well, they can't. I mean, it's owned by the Crown Estates, which is sort of meant to be sort of arm's length. And the lease is pretty secure there. As long as he upholds the fabric of the house, then he can stay. This is his last bit of royal status, really. And for him, everything is about status. He has very little sense of his own identity. I mean, he describes himself as a prince first, a naval officer second, and a husband third. Well, he kind of failed at the second and third, but this is the one thing he can still hang on to, and he wants to be able to pass it on to his children, I think. Um, and he has, as we saw at Duchess of Kent's funeral, very little sense of self-awareness or an ability to read the room. And he's stubborn, and he thinks there's no reason for him to go, so he won't go.
The Duchess of Kent's funeral, and it's a great shame for her that her funeral was overshadowed by this, but was notable because Andrew made a determined effort to be seen to be talking in public to Prince William, who could not have looked less delighted to be involved. That was pretty awful to look at. It was rather grotesque, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, the royal family clearly are embarrassed by him. The danger is that they almost need to keep him close for worry that he might do something dramatic. I mean, there are always worries that there'll be an Andrew Morton figure who will release stories that they prefer not to come out. But yes, I mean, he was, hoping to get a bit of attention. I mean, the ridiculous thing is that King Charles seems to have allowed him to have a police escort from Windsor to the funeral. He was given a front row seat. So in some ways, it's not just Prince Andrew, but I think other members of the institution, I mean, in the office, who need to reconsider how they're treating him. They are way behind public opinion on this.
So, do you think the king then is partly responsible and perhaps needs to have a confrontation and actually deal with his brother one on one?
Well, I think there have been attempts to do this. I mean, he thought that he could push him out of Royal Lodge. There were assurances that Andrew could afford to live there. The problem is you can't believe anything Andrew says. I don't think he told the truth entirely about the Newsnight interview to his family. I don't think he's been entirely open about his sources of wealth to them. There needs to be a bit more due diligence. The palace is filled with former spooks. I think they should be reporting. But my own research showed that when the spooks did report to the Queen and the Queen's private secretary, that nothing was done. He was protected, and he knows he's protected.
And as you say, there is that real risk that he could, he likes money, he could take a juicy offer from a publisher and tell all. Although you might know more than me, Andrew, but I'm not quite sure what all would amount to. Can you give us some
Well,
hints?
well, I mean, I don't know either, but clearly there are perhaps embarrassing episodes in the family's history, perhaps relating to Queen, Prince Philip, Prince King Charles, who knows, Harry and Meghan. There must be stories there that are of interest that he's not related. This was always the worry with Sarah Ferguson, which is why they kept her close over the years. Uh, um, we don't know what we don't know, but I suspect there are a lot of secrets that they have which could be divulged, which would be very damaging to the monarchy. I mean, the irony is that in my book entitled, I end the book by saying that Andrew, who claims to be a great supporter of the monarchy, could be actually one of the instruments that brings it down. And it seems these events are playing in very much to that argument.
And the next looming deadline, if you like, for Andrew will be the late Virginia Giuffre's book, which I think comes out, is it next week or the week after?
Yes, it's out next week. As I say, the other books coming out. Uh, I think a more serious one called Blue Butterfly next month. But people are now prepared to talk. Things are beginning to emerge, and I only think it can get worse for the royal family and for Andrew.